Welcome to the Edst2022 training package for new EALD teachers. Today we will take a look at the key principles of effective EAL teaching and examine some of the ways that you can cater for both the socio-cultural and language learning needs of the EAL learners in your classroom. As you would be aware, Australia is a highly diverse nation with a population that derives from many different places around the world. In New South Wales, 21% of residents identify as having been born overseas, 20% speak a language other than English at home, and many identify with a diverse range of religions, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam. As such, it's easy to see why one of the most significant challenges faced by teachers in schools is the need to recognise and work with this cultural diversity in our classrooms. This is explicitly addressed in the New South Wales Government's multicultural education policy, which calls for schools to recognise and respect the cultural, linguistic and religious backgrounds of all students. In order to do this effectively, the literature tells us that we must utilise culturally responsive teaching practices to assist our students to realise their full potential. But what are these practices specifically, and how can they be implemented? First of all, to be a culturally responsive teacher, you need to have the right attitude. You must value diversity, understand important socio-cultural issues, and create an open and caring classroom community that is inclusive of all students. Integral to this is engaging in self-reflection, considering your own attitudes and beliefs about cultural diversity, socio-political structures, and privilege. At the same time, you need the right knowledge. You must know your students and have a detailed understanding of their cultural backgrounds and identities. This can be achieved by creating a socio-linguistic profile of your class at the beginning of each year, as well as ensuring that you build relationships with your students. Given the importance of self-concept, particularly in adolescence, teachers must use this knowledge to help students to continue to develop their cultural identities through learning. This can be achieved by designing and delivering more appropriate programs and instructional strategies that are specific to the EAL learners in your classroom and your school. This can be done in a number of ways. Firstly, EAL students should be encouraged to talk about their culture and identity in a variety of school contexts, including their regular classroom. They should also be provided with regular opportunities to draw on their cultural and language backgrounds as part of the school curriculum and learning activities to make their learning personally relevant and interesting. This can be done by using cultures as lenses through which students learn the curriculum and including information about different cultures when delivering subject content. Teachers should also facilitate student discussions about issues such as belonging and identity, provide explicit instruction in the hidden curriculum, and encourage active learning through which students are prompted to imbue new ideas with personal meaning. On a whole school level, teachers should build relationships with students' local communities, including parents and cultural community associations, and organise cultural exchange programs and establish connections with other schools internationally. Now, all of this is important to understand because, according to sociolinguistic theory, language learning takes place in a socio-cultural context. Language learning occurs through social interaction, though it's by no means a simple or linear process. This is where Cummins' concept of BICS and CALP comes in. BICS, or Basic Interpersonal Communicative Skills, refers to the everyday conversational language that develops within social settings such as the playground. CALP, on the other hand, stands for Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency and is crucial for success at school, as it refers to the ability to communicate more abstract ideas in both written and oral modes. Cummins notes that BICS develops within 2 years of exposure to English, whilst EAL students require approximately 5 to 7 years of instruction to develop CALP. As such, it is clear that our EAL students need a lot of support to ensure their language learning needs are met. To provide this support, we must understand the challenges our learners face and the principles of good second language instruction. First of all, we need to remember that students progress at varying rates through different stages of language development, depending on their prior schooling experiences. These include the beginning, emerging, developing, and consolidating stages of language acquisition. Throughout these stages, students are likely to encounter difficulties in learning English, including the peculiarities of English sounds, grammar and syntax, the differences between English and their first language, including different writing systems, directionality, and purposes for writing, and the acquisition of the vocabulary they need to express themselves in a variety of contexts. However, we can help our students to overcome these difficulties by scaffolding their learning and supporting them within their zones of proximal development. This can be done by designing interconnected tasks at an appropriate level of challenge that allows learners to build up new skills, by adjusting learning tasks according to individual needs, by providing a safe and supportive learning environment and establishing rapport with students, and by assessing student readiness to reduce scaffolds and increase autonomy. We must also ensure that we provide our students with scaffolding in 3 important domains. These include the conceptual, for example by pre-teaching important or complex ideas with visuals and graphic organisers, the linguistic, for example by using multiple modes to present information, pre-teaching key vocabulary items and simplifying language when needed, and the cultural, for example by drawing on students' background knowledge and cultural experiences during learning. Furthermore, utilising a student's first language to assist them in their acquisition of English is a useful tool that should not be ignored. Language acquisition requires development in 4 key areas: speaking, listening, reading and writing, which all require the kind of scaffolded support just mentioned. Oral language competency is crucial for the development of literacy skills, so this must be a key focus for any EALD teacher. Rather than relying on the traditional initiation, response, evaluation model, teachers should employ a dialogic approach in the classroom so that students can learn spoken language in an authentic and meaningful context. As Gibbons writes, language learning is a socially mediated process whereby both teachers and learners are active participants in the co-construction of language and curriculum knowledge. This also means that we should use collaborative learning in pairs and small groups as a way of supporting students' proficiency and fluency in English. However, you should also be prepared for students to experience a silent period, during which time they will focus on listening rather than speaking. As EALD teachers, we must remember to approach listening as an active process. Striking a balance between language-focused and meaning-focused listening is also crucial. Whilst being able to recognise the form, sounds, and stress and intonation patterns of words is an important part of listening accurately, we must also place emphasis on top-down listening processes and listening for meaning. This can be achieved through scaffolded activities such as a dictogloss or picture prompts, which requires students to reconstruct information they have listened to in a written or visual form. Additionally, we should amplify information in our classrooms by utilising message abundancy, providing the new words and concepts in a variety of modes to increase our learners' comprehension. Reading is a particularly difficult and daunting activity for our EALD learners, given that semantic, syntactic, and graphophonic knowledge is required to access meaning. Written language is also decontextualized and reliant on high levels of cultural understanding, rendering it particularly difficult to access. Given the enormity of the task of reading, deep scaffolding can be used to support the reading process. This includes 3 key stages: priming, which occurs before reading, where you can build and activate your students' background knowledge and explicitly teach vocabulary; navigating, which occurs during reading, where you can model effective reading strategies to your students and show them what to do when they come across difficult or unknown words; and amplifying, which occurs after reading. This will help students to make connections between their existing knowledge and the information learned during reading by, for example, summarizing and creating mind maps. Finally, we must also scaffold our students' writing skills. An understanding of genre is one of the first things that must be developed. We need to show students how language is used for specific purposes, such as to explain or to persuade, and in particular contexts, such as a letter to the editor in a newspaper. We must aim to foster active student involvement in writing by building the field, modelling the genre, and providing joint construction. This allows our students to progress from constructing a highly scaffolded response to producing individual work. Remember that at the heart of teaching EALD is providing your students with the ability to communicate and achieve academic success. This requires knowing your students and understanding their needs, whilst also treating them as capable, intelligent learners.